the Qenda really is like two massive celebrations for me. The first one is I don't have the symptoms and I don't have Crohn's anymore. And the second one is, it was always terrifying for me that, like, when is that going to happen again? When am I going to be in that situation again? And I think I'm not, but you're not. It's not going to happen.
Here we are with Suzie, the hero that fixed the Crohn's disease. So, yeah, fire away. Do you want to just say, like, what your, like, diagnosis was, or what your symptoms was before the diagnosis, and how it sort of led up to that point? And, yeah, say a little bit about you, Suzie.
So I was diagnosed 32 years ago, which I can't believe it's that long. It was very shortly after my father passed away of bowel cancer. And the symptoms initially were, I just didn't go to the toilet. I think the longest I went was nearly 21 days. And nobody was listening to me. I went to the doctor so many times, and they just kept giving me different laxatives, which made me violently ill. I was told by one GP that it was all in my head. It was just because my dad had died. I was coming out in sympathy with him or something. So, I was only 19, and I thought, well, if that's what the doctor says, then obviously that must be true. I'll just carry on being in a lot of pain. And I was so huge. And the thing at the time was, because my bowel was obviously so full, it made me really hungry, which you would think it'd have the opposite effect. So I was eating quite a lot as well. And when it finally decided to come out, I basically collapsed at work. I was in the toilet at work, so embarrassed. I had 50 male reps that I worked for in a financial organization, and I was in the toilet for 3 hours, and I had to strip off all my clothes because I was just pouring with sweat, because obviously the mass was trying to come out, but it couldn't come out because it was so solid. And then I passed out, and I think somebody eventually came in and realized that I was on the floor in the toilet, and I got carted off to hospital in ambulance, and then they started to take it more seriously. And I saw a guy who said, you are literally full of shit, basically. I come back and I tested that, I've got Crohn's disease. And at the time I completely shut out. I was in denial of having it. I was grieving for my dad. And the way that I dealt with it was to drink a lot of alcohol and party a lot. Didn't do me any good at all. So in the 30 years, I've had 3 major surgeries, 3 bowel resections. Each of those has been pretty horrendous. The first one I ever had, I think I was about 26, and it had such a terrible effect on me. It didn't go very, very well, the operation. The healing was awful. And I always said at the time to my mum, like, if I ever have to have that operation again, just kill me. Like, I'm never going through that again. And then unfortunately, 10 years later, I needed it again. So I've had 32 years of immunosuppressants, strong doses of steroids, take lots of drugs every day. Sometimes they'd help a little bit. Sometimes they wouldn't help at all. Because I was immunosuppressed, I would get tonsillitis probably every other month. I would get big boils at the tops of my legs every other month. I would feel so fatigued. I remember, if you're ever asked about Crohn's in a medical environment, and I think it's really hard. I've always found it really hard to get across. You say diarrhea, and people think, maybe they've had a bit of food poisoning, or they've had something dodgy, and for 24 hours they've, had diarrhea, and you just think, no, it's that this is 25, 28, 30 times a day, every day. This is normal for me. Not being able to leave the house, or I've always been like a push forward person, so I kind of learned to live with it, but ended up doing stuff that I needed to do, but ended up being in trouble quite a lot, with not being near the toilet, and then obviously the chronic pain, not just from inside the stomach, but also because if you're releasing that so many times, your bottom is so sore. I mean, sometimes I would literally feel like it was hanging out, and I'd be sat on the toilet for so long sometimes that I would literally just, when I'd finished, I'd slide off the toilet and just lay on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes because I was depleted of everything. And I hadn't realized how lacking in nutrition I was, because for years I had to live on a white rice, white pita bread, chicken, no fruit, no veg, no salad. So it's a very bland diet. And sticking to that is really hard, but also when you're sticking to that and actually you're still really unwell, is pretty horrendous. And it wasn't until Qenda and being able to introduce all these foods and packing myself full of nutrition that I've realised all of the other things that I was lacking in that I didn't realise. I mean, so it's like my hair's got thicker, my eyelashes have grown longer, my fingernails have grown longer. I used to get really red around here. That's all gone. My skin doesn't get anywhere near as dry. I don't have the headaches. So yeah, there's lots of things that I didn't realize I was suffering with, because that just was my normal. That I've had such a big change that I've realized, all of the benefits. The obvious ones are great, but the other benefits are a bonus.
You don't realize, like you say, Crohn's disease, you just describe it as like diarrhea and 30 bowel movements a day, but you have every symptom under the sun, don't you? It's pretty messy. It's pretty horrible, isn't it? And you forget what normal feels like.
I don't know whether it's the same for men or women. I know I hear adverts on the, you hear adverts on the telly and the radio about, men not liking, they get embarrassed about talking about certain things, prostate cancer or anything to do with their bowel. But I mean, particularly when I started at a very young age with it, where you find everything embarrassing. I learned to hide the illness. I learned to hide the disabilities. I learned to just quietly go off and be in a lot of pain, because for everybody around you, when you like it all the time, it sounds awful because they love you, but it's so boring for them. It's just how she is. Like, that's what her life is like. And so you get where you hide it, and the embarrassment is, when you're talking about, shitting yourself, it's horrendous.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more embarrassing. People say to me, why are you so upfront and stuff like that? How can you be yourself so much? It's like, try shitting yourself for 5 years. That is the worst thing you could ever do. Everything else you ain't got out to worry about. Nothing comes close. You haven't really got out to be embarrassed about after that. So what did you do to fix it?
So I had the pleasure of meeting you, and when somebody said to me, you've got to speak to James because he used to have Crohn's and colitis, and I thought, what do you mean used to have it? I thought, they clearly don't know anything about Crohn's and colitis, because I've got it, I own it. You can't get rid of it. It's incurable. That's what I was always told and believed for years. And I think it was the third day of Qenda. I mean, the first day I noticed a difference. The second day I noticed more of a difference. And then by the third day, it was like, bloody hell, I've got no symptoms. Like, I think by day 3, I was going to the toilet twice a day, and instead of 25, 30. And for the first time, I can't actually even remember having a formed stool. Like, I can't remember what that was like. So, and this sounds really silly, but just the feeling of having like a normal poo I was jumping up and down. I videoed it because I was so excited. I've been so chronically ill for so many years, and then for it to go away, but then you soon forget. I'm walking around thinking, God, I'm like a normal person. Like, I'm normal now. Like, so it's this last couple of months I've been in different situations. Like, if you go for a massage, whatever, they ask you to fill out stuff, and they say, have you got any illnesses or anything? And I say no. And they ask you about your medication, and I'm like, no, I'm on no medication, and I have no illnesses. Thank you very much.
Well done, you, and well done for deciding to do it, because obviously it's like you were saying on the call, like the fact that it's called Ultimate Fibre is scary in itself, isn't it?
I was told, like, fibre is the devil. Like, don't go anywhere near fibre.
That's yeah, it's obviously so much more than that, like 30 ingredients, and yeah, to give you solid bowel movements again, and yeah, give you your life back. It's amazing, and that's pretty big, isn't it? They say there's 2 stages of healing. You heal yourself physically, but then you heal yourself like mentally as well, like realizing that you're not ill. Like it's a big shift as well, isn't it?
Exactly, that's exactly what it is. It's like the identity, and it's like the, you know, I hear people say a lot, you know, like I used to say my Crohn's disease, I owned it like it was my thing. I don't even know what words to use to describe the fact that I don't identify to having that anymore. To have that indented in my brain for 3 decades, that this is you, this is your life, this is what you'll have forever. Oh, and by the way, even after these surgeries, the likelihood of you needing the next surgery will be within the next 10 years, and it's like a ticking clock. You know, when I get to about year 8, I think, oh my God, you know, like next couple of years it's going to be, and it was pretty much like every 10 years for those 3 decades. You know, and the last operation that I had was very nearly didn't make it. They perforated my bowel accidentally. You know, apparently my bowel was in such a state, it took them 3.5 hours to unglue my bowel because of, you know, all the stricturing and all the scar tissue and stuff from the previous surgeries. I didn't, you know, they don't tell you that when they first operate on you, that, oh, you know, by the way, also when we operate, you know, that's gonna cause issues in itself. And you know, I couldn't work for a year after that operation. I was in intensive care for 5 weeks. The horror of it, I think, was because for 10 days they weren't sure whether they'd perforated it or not. It's like, have we, haven't we? And I had there was 12 surgeons, gastroenterologists and surgeons at Addenbrooke's. And I had a visit from a couple of them every day because they were getting more and more concerned, because they said, look, if we call it like 7 days or never, we have to go back in and repair within 7 days or not. And of course, I was on so many drugs at the time. I wasn't really compos mentis, but, you know, what they meant by that was, you know, it was really dangerous to open me up and go back in. You know, I've been cut right down my stomach. It was really dangerous to go back in like that close after the surgery. And it was like on day 7, I was thinking, oh, it's, you know, I'm over it now. You know, I was sitting up and they'd let me like have a bit of sip of water. And then like 6:30 in the morning, I've never been so terrified. They literally just come running into my room at the hospital and said, like, you know, we've had a meeting and all 12 of us are saying, we've got to get in there now. We need to get you down. And I said, well, I need to ring my son. And they said, we've got to do it like now. And I'd had all these complications with the anaesthetic. I'd woken up from the previous surgery, like only 7 days before, screaming for 3 hours because they couldn't get my pain relief under control. So they had all these meetings to say, look, you know, if ever in the future you need surgery, we've got all these notes and we know exactly. Well, because it was emergency, it was a completely different team. I don't think I've ever been so frightened in all my life. And I thought, if somebody could just kill me right now so I don't have to feel this frightened. And they rushed me off, and that was it. Obviously, the next thing I knew, it was 10 hours later, the surgery. I woke up. I don't even know what happened. I just know that those weeks in hospital were like every hour felt like a day. It was like it was happening to me in slow motion. I had a colostomy bag, but the perforation was so high up the bowel, it was almost the duodenum. So what was pumping out of me literally in litres was all the toxic juices from the liver and the pancreas. And so they'd given me, they put a PICC line in to feed me liquid to try and get nutrition into me, because as much as they were getting into me, twice was pouring out of me. And I, at the time, I wasn't really taken in. I just thought, oh, you know, I didn't realise the life-threatening urgency of that, because I had nothing I needed to function in me. Even when I eventually, you know, I had to have physio to be able to walk again. And by the time I eventually came home, they'd set up like a mini hospital in my house, and I've got 3 teams of nursing staff coming in every day because they had to connect me to the TPN feed and disconnect me. And I had the drain and I had the, it was just, and that went on for 4 months until they were okay with me going back to reverse the surgery, and I was here on my own, and thank goodness I had friends popping in, and I had a friend popped in one day. She found me just passed out on the kitchen floor because the output of the colostomy was greater than the input of the TPN, and I was like almost in a coma, and she hadn't got me to hospital very, very quickly, then that would have been probably game over as well. The colostomy reversed and had my bowel put back in, thinking, like, they said, oh, you'll be back home for Christmas, you'll be able to have a Christmas dinner, and because I hadn't eaten or drank, I couldn't even have water for 4 months, couldn't have anything in my mouth at all. And so I had that operation. It was horrendous. I came home and I was just so ill for months. It basically was a whole year of feeling really dreadful. Yeah, it was just like, I went from being terrified I was going to die to just wanting to die and for it to be over, just the whole episode to be over. And so I suppose the Qenda really is like 2 massive celebrations for me. The first one is I don't have the symptoms, I don't have Crohn's anymore. And the second one is, it was always terrifying for me that, like, when is that going to happen again? When am I going to be in that situation again? And I think I'm not, but you're not. It's not going to happen.
Let's talk about the causes. When you was like cleansing with the Qenda, did you see any weird and wonderful stuff coming out of you?
Do you know what? It was that first time I felt forms stool coming out, and I thought, I took a video of it. I was like, I've got a video of this. This is so freaky. And I looked and I kind of thought, right, I lifted it up and it just came out like this, and it kind of like unfolded, and it was what it looked like was like decomposed banana skin. And I was thinking, like, that is not something I've eaten. Like, that's come up. I'm assuming it was mucoid plaque, was it, that was attached to my inside of my intestines.
It's quite euphoric, isn't it, when you see all this stuff coming out in your toilet? You're like, oh wow, my body hasn't been letting me down. It's this stuff in my body that's been knocking it all out of balance.
How long has this stuff been in there, like, causing all these issues? And there's nothing else out there, is there, that, like, you can go and have a colonic irrigation, but what does that do? That's just, isn't that just like trickling water through a hose pipe?
It's only like, it's obviously your large intestine goes round like this. It's only like the large intestine at best, or the first part of the large intestine. But obviously, like what you were saying, the infections are all in the small intestine round here. That's where you're not supposed to have any bacterias, and especially parasites and stuff like that. So when people have like parasites and bacterial overgrowths and fungal overgrowths, it's all in the small intestine. So you're having a colonic, you're just flushing out the large intestine. But even if you're having symptoms in the large intestine, it stems from the small intestine, and obviously it just flows down from there. Did you see any parasites or anything come out?
I mean, there was, I can't say that, because I wasn't sure what they would look like, and it was all lots and lots and lots of bits, and every little bit I picked up then fell out into this bigger bit. It was it was quite fascinating.
And all that stuff has actually been in like the folds of your intestines, all the pockets and areas of your intestines. That's the stuff that's been storing up and building there. And the reason why I asked if you saw any parasites or worms, like I said to you when I first met you, I was like, it's like a parasitic infection. It's interesting that that's never really talked about in the medical system or whatever, that you can have overgrowths in the small intestine and that can mess up the whole digestive system. It's just sort of, you have antibiotics or have laxatives and have immunosuppressants to suppress your immune system that's reacting to these overgrowths, but never actually deal with the overgrowth. You dealt with the overgrowth now, and you feel better, and you are better.
I apart from obviously the symptoms going away, I would say that when you have something for such a long time, that's your normal. But I was aware all the time, really, that I was probably running on about 70% of most people's energy, 60, 70%. But now I just think, God, I've got so much more energy. I would have to have afternoon sleeps. You know, I mean, I work for myself. I've got my own business, thank God, because like years ago when I was first diagnosed, I'd be in a meeting with my boss and I'd have to say, oh, I just need to go to the toilet. I'd have to have like a 5-minute nap in the toilet. And it's so debilitating, you know, so debilitating. And it's not tiredness. It's like someone just switched your light off, you know. And to not have that now is it's just brilliant. It's just amazing.
Obviously, you're sort of eating what you want. Like, do you want to say what it's like now?
It's
like,
funny, isn't it? Because
new Suzie.
It's you know, if someone goes on to like a diet and, you know, they're told they have to eat vegetables and salad or whatever, and it's like, but for me, like the excitement of being able to eat vegetables, fruit, salad, like going out, I go over to the auction house across the road from me, and I used to go over there and I'd have like maybe a slice of quiche, and I'd have to pick bits out of it, and the inner bit of a jacket potato. That's it. But now it comes with like a salad, and it's like I can eat the lettuce and the tomato and the cucumber, and it's just, and the feeling of like having fresh, nutritious food is it's just fantastic. It's just completely given me my life back.
So who would you recommend it to, like specifically?
Everybody should be on it. Everybody, I think, they're going to benefit from it. But certainly, you know, everybody, I speak to so many people at the moment with bowel issues. You know, they might have IBS. I've got a really close friend with IBS, and of course there's a bit of like, oh well, it's, you know, it's not as serious as Crohn's or colitis, but you know, IBS is bloody horrendous for people. And she's got 2 sisters. One was just recently diagnosed with Crohn's and colitis, and the other one, they've not diagnosed her with anything, but she's got where she's so it's messing up her life so much with her toilet issues that she's really, really depressed about it. So the 3 of them are having real problems. And they started Qenda, I'm going to say 3 months ago. And I only just caught up with my friend the other day, and I said to her, you know, are you all on it? She said, it is a miracle. It's like magic. We're all doing so well on it. And it makes me want to cry, because I just think, God, you know, like how can we get more people to know about it? I mean, I tell everybody that I speak to about it. Everyone that I meet, I tell them about it. But I mean, you know, obviously, certainly anyone with autoimmunes, you know, fibromyalgia, Crohn's, colitis.
So crazy that you had to go through that for so long. But obviously, it's given you the mental strength and obviously taught you so much. But thank God you got the rest of your life to enjoy now and be Suzie 2.0. But yeah, thank you very much.